Hello and welcome back to Casino Guitars. Jonathan here today to talk about some pretty cool models and why you might need one. Before we go any farther, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Click the bell so you don't miss videos in the future. We always appreciate you guys hanging out with us. But today, I want to talk about Gibson ES 335s and 45s and 55s and why you need one. They're amazing guitars, amazing models. They were a mystery to me for a long time. They were sort of like bucket list guitars. I've only sort of fairly recently, the last, I don't know, I guess couple years, have I had access to and owned one. But let's talk about how they started. So Gibson introduced the 335 in 1958, sort of. In the early 50s, obviously, Fender had come out with a Telecaster, solid body stuff, sort of became in vogue, obviously, the Les Paul. And, a lot of their hollow body guitars, their bigger guitars, they're as people were playing louder with distortion, well, not really distortion, but with their amps pushed a little bigger and trying to get more volume, obviously, there were feedback issues. They weren't quite the trendy thing anymore. So Gibson had a pretty brilliant idea to put a solid piece of maple through a hollow guitar, making it thinner as well. And that turned this thing into a semi hollow guitar. And the ES 335 was sort of born from that in the 45 and the 55. But as a result, it could be quite a bit louder. You don't have to worry as much about feedback. You still do get this awesome sort of feedback. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But it sort of brought that idea of the Gibson hollow body into the future. And it's been an amazing model for Gibson ever since. Ever since I saw Eric Clapton play the red 335 with the block inlays with cream, I've always thought they were amazing. I've always loved the look of big guitars. I like Gretsch's. I like big hollow body Gibsons. I just think they look cool. So I've always been drawn to that. But like I said, until recently, I never really got to play one very often. But now that I do, it's becoming one of my favorite things. I find myself grabbing this guitar a ton for gigs these days. Part of the allure is just that they're sexy looking guitars. They're just amazing. You might say that doesn't matter. You hear people make that argument all the time. It doesn't matter what your guitar looks like, but it does, because if you look at your guitar and you just can't wait to touch it, you just can't wait to be around it, you're gonna play more, you're gonna play differently. And I think bigger guitars make me do that as well, which is pretty cool. But getting back to why you actually need a 335, they're amazingly versatile. People say that all the time. You can do anything on these things. You can play jazz. You can play loud, really dirty rock and roll. You can do everything in between. There's something about them, because they're semi-hollow. They have sort of an airiness and an openness that I don't tend to find in like Les Pauls. So me, especially being a Fender player growing up, and all my sort of formative playing years, I can gravitate to this easier than a Les Paul sometimes. It feels like I find the tone to have a little more in common with some of the attributes of like Fender stuff that I think about. It doesn't seem to be quite as that dark, super compressed sound that's amazing in the right context with a Les Paul. But this can do, I don't know, it seems to be able to do more on that sort of top end airiness that I enjoy. And then when you need to get sort of down and dirty and you want to play that sort of greasy, dark humbucker sound, you can do it. So I don't know, I've just found it to be sort of a bit of a Swiss Army knife thing for me. In the same set, I can go from playing, Folsom Prison on this to, Southern rock stuff and get the humbucker growl. And it's right home. It works. It's great. There is a wonderful thing about a 335 where you're playing loud with the amp. And it doesn't feedback the way that a total hollow body guitar does, but it's like it catches the note and you feel it resonating in there and you get this good feedback, and it's sort of, it almost turns into infinite sustain. You know, like if you're playing a note, it's almost like the feedback is just these different harmonics in the note, and that's euphoric. If for no other reason, you need a 335 to do and experience that. You know, probably the most common is the 335, like what I'm holding right here. Baxter has a 355. Now, those models had the variatone switch, which is just a bunch of series. It's just like capacitors and inductors that changes sort of the tonal characteristics of your pickups. It's like having a tone control on steroids. So it just gives you a lot of different sounds. That was on the 345 models as well. That's the difference between a 335 and a 345. And then when you go 355, you get the baritone, and there's an option for it to be wired to stereo. So like this thing is wired to stereo. So like one pickup goes to one amp, the other pickup goes to another amp. Pretty darn cool. A lot of fun. Their options, you know, like historically, you could get a Bigsby or you could get the Vibrola, sort of tailpiece. So pretty awesome. They were dots, I think, until, gosh, I want to say 62 is when they switched to the square, the block inlays. But you know, obviously, mostly aesthetic there. And then obviously there's different neck carves and all those sort of things. But across the board, there's just nothing like plugging in big Semi Hollow 335, 345, 355, turning the amp up, letting it scream, then rolling it off, rolling the tone back, getting sort of jazzy, awesome clean tones. You can get woody tones. You can do pretty much anything you want. You can even get some twang out of these things on the bridge pickup, the right setting with the right amp. So I don't know. Just to me, one of the most iconic, beautiful, just versatile guitars. And all those reasons are why you probably need an ES335 or a 345 or a 355. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Like I said, hit like, hit subscribe, click that bell. Have a great day.